Welcome to Everything CPA and Private Equity, where we unpack the evolving relationship between accounting firms, private equity, and other strategics. I'm David Wolfskehl, a partner at Whitman Transition Advisors.
And I'm Phil Whitman, CEO of Whitman Transition Advisors. And we've chatted with more than 150 private equity groups. We've actually closed over 40 transactions with those private equity groups. And we're bringing you firsthand insights from the front lines.
And whether you're exploring your first deal, putting your toe in the water, refining your strategy, we're here to guide you with real stories, expert advice, actionable takeaways. Let's dive in. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Everything CPA and Private Equity. I'm here with my co-host, Phil Whitman, today, and we're going to talk about scraped EBITDA, what's the minimum EBITDA. This is going to be our EBITDA presentation for everybody. But before we get into EBITDA, I always like to start with a quote, because we really want to be a resource for leaders in the CPA industry. As they take this journey, we want to be that Sherpa. So great leaders do not set out to be a leader. They set out to make a difference. And so I'd push all our listeners, think about how you can make an impact on your team today, because you are a multiplier. And so be mindful and make that happen. So Phil, good morning to you. And let's get into, we get so many questions about EBITDA. We get so many misunderstandings. So let's clear up some misconceptions. So first of all, if we went back 5 years ago, did any CPA managing partner ever say EBITDA to you when talking about an M&A transaction?
Good morning, David. So it's very interesting, because I used to say, when we would look at the merger and acquisition work that we would do, it was rather simple. We would just take, a multiple, usually 1 times gross revenue, and say, okay, you're a $10 million firm, you're worth $10 million.
Math was not that difficult.
Regardless of profitability. Oh, and by the way, this is now one of the reasons you'll hear me perhaps on every episode saying there's never been a better time to be a CPA or a CPA firm. It's just kind of incredible what's going on. And this thing, EBITDA, which is the acronym for earnings before income, taxes, depreciation, amortization. I mean, no one ever looked at this stuff. What we're doing, because CPA firms still don't have EBITDA, right?
We're a partner model. We just take everything, don't we?
Yeah,
And we leave a little bit for some known expenses, right?
Everything is compensation.
Everything.
There's no such thing as EBITDA. So we have to come up with a contrived or a created EBITDA. And how do we do that? Well, I'll give you an example. So, and this should be all encompassing, because I'm going to give you an example where this is going to be a fail. It's not going to work. Okay. And this is also a message to firms out there. I would tell you, there's an opportunity for everyone. However, some firms just aren't going to be profitable enough today. But today isn't tomorrow.
If you don't have the EBITDA, you're going to hear friends, and it's going to be exciting things. It starts with having EBITDA. So profitability now is a key.
So we've worked with firms that are incredibly profitable, putting 50% to the bottom line. Let's say you're a $10 million firm, okay? But let's say you're not putting 50% to the bottom line. Let's say you've got 7 partners in this $10 million firm, okay? But you're only dropping 28% to the bottom line. $2 of distributable EBITDA for your partner group. And if you got 7 partners on average, that's $400,000 a partner. So now there's something called a scrape. And the scrape is pretty much saying, okay, Mr. $400,000 earner, how much of your $400,000 are you willing to give up or scrape? And that amount is going to be available as profits for the venture. So if you've got 7 partners earning $400,000 each. The one thing private equity is not going to let you do, they're not going to say, oh, take it all. Oh, I only need to make 100,000, because you know what? They can't find someone for 100,000 to replace you. So in this firm where you've got 7 partners each earning 400,000, the best you might be able to do is for them to say, okay, we'll allow each of you to go down to 250,000.
The best.
The best. And if you did that, you'd have 150,000 of leave behind EBITDA per partner. And now if you take that 150,000 and let's say, you're a $10 million firm, I'm going to be generous. Let's say that 150,000 times 7.
Phil, I don't think you should be generous, right? We're about being realistic on this podcast because we know what's going on. So let's talk
Yes.
real instead
All right,
of
we'll talk real, because we've been there and we are there with a couple of firms right now, $10 million firms. So we're going to use a 7.5 multiple. Okay. A 7.5 multiple of that created or scraped EBITDA. So if you've got 7 partners each giving up $150,000, so they'll each make $250,000 after the transaction. That's $1,050,000 of scraped EBITDA. And now we multiply that by a 7.5. And you know what? Fortunately, the $10 million firm is only be valued at $7,875,000. Guess what?
at best case.
That's lower than one. That's lower than one. So you're not going to want to do that deal. That's not a lucrative deal. Now, we work with firms that are the same 10 million in revenue, but they're dropping 50% to the bottom line. And when they drop 50% to the bottom line, those partners now are making a lot more money, and so there would be significantly more scraped EBITDA, because if you go from 750,000, let's say, of earnings to 250, now you're leaving 500,000 behind. And now take that 500,000 and let's assume, you only had 6 partners. Now you're talking about significant dollars. 3 million times, a 7.5. Now your firm is worth something like 22 million.
So just we have a low profit firm that in the private equity, and again, we say private equity, but it's wealth management, it's family office, it's all kinds of different strategic buyers. But we have one firm that's better off in the old ways of getting a one-time revenue wise. And then we have another firm that's probably going to end up with 2 times top line revenue. And it all starts with that EBITDA number, correct?
That starts with that EBITDA number. And guess what? The private equity groups and strategic investors that we've been working with, they've been creative, they've been generous. It's not just about that scrape. They're going to look at your financial statements. There's going to be add backs to that for things that were one-time items. Let's say last year you bought all computers for your staff. Well, you don't do that every year. Maybe you do it every 3 or 4 or 5 years. And there are going to be reasonable add backs to create a higher EBITDA number.
Potentially, if those add backs are there, right? If you didn't buy computers last year or do a one-time expense, there's nothing to add, right?
That is true. Absolutely true. So, I think the bottom line is, highly profitable firms are going to achieve significantly greater multiple than 1 times gross revenue. Now, I don't want to disappoint anyone. If you are a 20% bottom line firm, that when you do this scrape exercise, you're not going to achieve a multiple of 1. There are certainly things you can do. Maybe you're not ready today, but maybe 2 years from now, you could get yourself ready. And that's all about looking at your profitability. And there are so many things that go into that. We've got an amazing group that anytime I speak with someone who doesn't have the requisite profitability to do a transaction with private equity or a strategic investor, I introduce them to the profits team.
And the offshoring team, I mean, right? And, you can also grow, right? So it could be that you start, doing some joint work or advisory work where you get a success fee, right? And you're not adding costs. But I think the biggest thing is to look at a great starting point is look at the compensation of your partners and think about how much is replacement value. That if Joe left, how much would I have to pay somebody to do Joe's work? And how much is profitability because I own a company? And again, you might think that these private equity firms might give you a really, really low salary. They're not going to do that because although you might say, I'm really happy day one, year and a half, you're unhappy making so much less than you were previously. So it needs to be in that realistic range for you to live your lifestyle. It needs to be in that realistic range of replacement value as well.
Yeah. Now, David, that's a great point. And what I'd like to add is sometimes we see firms where, we've got an older group of partners and a younger group of partners. And in the best run firms, I might be one of the more senior partners. If I've done an excellent job of transitioning the work on the clients to a younger partner, but let's say I'm a partner and I've got another year or two to go and I'm a high earning partner, the reality is you might be able to scrape my entire compensation because I've already transitioned my clients. And you know what? Probably everyone is sitting around saying, God, this guy's making a ton of money and he doesn't even work on any clients anymore. And we know firms where, managing partners have told me they're good to their partners that are on their way out. They've done an excellent job transitioning the clients and they're sitting there just collecting high salary for 2 or 3 years as they transition out. So, there are unlimited possibilities. So, don't write the story, don't rule it, you rule yourself out. But I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone just to try and help you evaluate whether or not this is the right direction you should be seeking. So,
And look, we are really client focused. And so if it's not the right direction, we're happy to help you in whatever direction you want to go in. But you could probably spend a half an hour with Phil or I or somebody else on our team and have a pretty good idea of what the future could hold and what direction you need to take to maximize your goals.
yeah, when we started doing this, the mission is to be helpers, to be connectors. And one of the things we say at Whitman Transition Advisors, and we've said it since our very beginning, we say because it's your life. And because it's your life, we are not a hammer and nail organization. We love taking a multi-pronged approach and just showing everyone what is possible. And that could be, hey, we want to remain independent. We believe we can do it. And if you believe you can do it, you want to know something, you're probably right. You can. There is just unprecedented opportunity in today's marketplace, and you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your partner group, if you have partners, to explore and know what's going on, because we've never seen opportunities like this in the 130 plus years that we have been a profession of public accounting.
Who hasn't been involved all 130 years, for those of you who are wondering that.
It's hard to believe. This is my first anniversary of getting started in the business of public accounting. So I've been in it for about a third of the time.
And if we had your dad, right, and
forget
you were
it.
growing up, you were talking CPA, I'm sure, at the dinner table as well. So maybe you're up to half.
There we go.
So anyhow, EBITDA, it's the basis. And if you don't have strong EBITDA, although you're hearing about these things that are going on, you might not be ready for it, because the higher the profitability, the higher your number's going to be. And if you're low profitable, it could be that the older way of a multiple of earnings is actually a more lucrative fit. We're happy to help you in any way that you want to help. We're happy to have quick conversations. because, we're probably up to over 10 deals so far with private equity in 2025 already, over 30 deals. We know this stuff from the inside. We've seen lots of different situations already and how to overcome. So Phil, any final EBITDA comments as we wrap up our special EBITDA edition here?
Yeah, one of the things I always like to say, you can only look at your expenses so much. So when we talk about profitability, are you pricing your projects correctly? Are you billing enough? When I used to teach business development, leadership development classes, the one thing I would say to the young folks, you get what you fish for. If you want $500 tax returns, you'll find them all day long. If you want $2,500 tax returns, go for it. I mean, we work with a client and he told me he's not taking on any new 1040 clients unless the relationship is going to bring at least $75,000. So think about what you're fishing for. Think about your pricing. Eliminate the fear. We are revenue-based. We're all in sales. And you know what? You really need to make it happen. Ability, there's no reason why you should be at 28% and other people are at 45, 50, 60, 72%. Take a good hard look at your practice, and there's helpers out there. So I'm Phil Whitman, really pleased to be with my partner, David. Whenever we're together doing these things, it's always a very exciting moment. David, thank you so much for being an amazing host.
Well, thank you, Phil. Any questions on EBITDA, we're here to help you. But profitability went from something that did matter 3 years ago or 5 years ago to it is the basis of some of these valuations that you're hearing. And it's not just size of company anymore. It's size plus profitability, where in the past, it was really about size of firm. So this is David Wolfskehl along with Phil Whitman. Thank you for spending some time. If you need any help with your profits or mergers, you have any questions, we're here to help you. Go crush the day, everybody, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into Everything CPA and Private Equity. Every episode brings fresh insight. However, there's always more to talk about. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe wherever you watch podcasts. Have a question or topic you'd like us to cover? We'd love for you to reach out to us. Together, we will help you navigate this dynamic landscape so that we can help you achieve your goals. Until next time, keep making moves that matter. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.